right. Well, I think that that puts us at time. I think we can go ahead and get started. So you want to take us away?
Cool. Well, thank you all for joining us today. This session is going to reflect a bit on process. I, for one, am a creature of habit, particularly when it comes to food. I follow recipes when I cook. I get into cycles when it comes to the types of meals I prepare. And when I find a restaurant that I enjoy, I tend to order the same meal on my return visits. And I do this because it reduces risk in my life. There's a safety and comfort in knowing that a meal is going to taste exactly the way I expect it to. However, it also prevents me from exploring new methods of cooking, the types of entrees that I serve, and new meals that I want to try when I'm dining out, and any one of which could be exponentially better than the original food I was prioritizing out of familiarity. So today, Drew and I want you to step out of your comfort zone. We want you to challenge your current agency process and open yourself up to new client opportunities by starting with a simple, easily produced project rather than a huge contract deal. We want you to start small to win big. To kick things off, we'll do some quick introductions, discuss the big project dilemma, share the benefits of small projects along with 8 specific examples that you can try with your agency, and then save some time at the end for Q&A and conversation. We really want this to be interactive, so we're going to actually kick things off with a little bit of a prompt. What have you tried to help scale your business? Are there large or small projects that you tried to help you win a larger account? Tell us in the chat right now, what worked well, what didn't work. Hopefully we'll all walk away today with a little bit of inspiration. And while you guys are responding to that, I'll introduce myself more formally. I am Sarah Fruey, the Director of Web Ops Partner Marketing at Pantheon. And for the past 3 years, I've managed our brand strategy, the marketing website, and digital growth initiatives at Pantheon to improve our customer experience and optimize conversion marketing efforts. And recently started a new role as the Director of Partner Marketing to work with agencies like yourselves and help them grow their business and educate customers on how to build best-in-class web ops or website operations programs. You can follow me on Twitter at Sarah Fruey and find my writing on marketing and web ops as a guest contributor on many popular websites as well as the Pantheon blog. And when I'm not at work, you'll likely find me playing with my 2 young children who are fast asleep right now, or out on one of the gorgeous hiking trails near my home in Oakland, California. And I will pass it over to Drew.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, my name is Drew Gorton, and I've been doing Drupal for close to 15 years, open source web development for a number of years before that, and I've now been with Pantheon for about 6 years. Before I joined Pantheon, I ran an agency. I did that for a long time, and I've been now with Pantheon for, again, close to 6 years, and had the chance to work with Sarah for a lot of that time. So I'm really happy to be presenting with Sarah today on this, because Sarah's been someone who buys from agencies, hires agencies on a regular basis. She's done this many times throughout her career. And I have the perspective of someone who's run an agency and sold projects to buyers like Sarah. Away from the computer, when I'm not doing this sort of thing, I enjoy languages and travel. And I do look forward to getting back to see all of you, hopefully, before too long. Offsetting that lack of travel, I've been doing lots more cooking in the last year. And I'm into all sorts of nerdy things like science fiction and such. So if anyone drops a reference to something nerdy in the chat, I'll probably pick up on it. Simone, thank you so much for offering up something that you've tried. And for those of you who haven't noticed it or haven't had a chance to type into the chat yet, let's share with each other. That's one of the nice things about this format, actually, is that it's possible for all of us to share and learn from each other. That's not just Sarah and I that can talk at once. So I'm gonna share a story, which is I think kind of like a blended agency story. So I've over the years gotten to know many different agency owners and founders and principals and executives and such. And there's a really common story, which is you start out, you're small, you're scrappy, you land a project, you get something ambitious, you work really hard, you maybe stay up late, you do everything you can to actually have that become a success, and it's exciting and it's fun, and you really kind of have a great sort of feeling from that. but then after a while, you can't do that for every project, right? You really start to think like, no, like I don't want to stay up late every single night in order to finish this project. It gets old quickly. And so I think most agencies, or many agencies at least, have like start focusing in on their process. They start focusing in on, all right, how can we do this better? How can we avoid the surprises, et cetera? And a really common way to do that is after every single project, you sit down with your team and say, okay, we just launched this project. What went well? What didn't go well? And the what didn't go well will oftentimes end up as like a list of things like, all right, so there was a spot here where we should have checked in with the client. We didn't, hit this deadline really well. There's other things. And you come up with a list of ideas, and some of those are going to make their way back into the process. And every single project from then on is going to learn from those lessons, which is good, but also, follow these additional steps, which over time starts to feel like a lot. It's really common for, as this happens naturally, project minimums go up and up and up and up. And eventually you get to a point where you really have a very high, a high barrier to entry, basically. It becomes very difficult to work with you because you can't write an email for $20,000, right? You have to have a ton of things before you can take a project. And, different agencies have different project minimums, but, is it 20,000? Is it 50,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 250,000? Is it 600,000? I've talked to agencies who are at all of those different places. And I think a lot of folks wish that you could somehow roll it back. How can we possibly go back to that little agency that could do projects and still sort of satisfy the full process needs that we have? And that's what Sarah and I are talking about today.
That's right. And, as Drew mentioned earlier, I have, worked at small startups as well as large heritage brands like the San Francisco Chronicle in the United States. And part of my job was being that website owner, that budget holder. And one of the things I can speak to from personal experience is how I've acquired that budget and managed it. And so, we want to emphasize today that you shouldn't discredit a potential client because they miss your minimum spend requirements as you're going through that discovery, especially if you know that they have the funds to go through with this project in the future. So depending on the size of the organization, decision makers will have the authority to sign off on, say, like a $10,000 budget, much easier than a $100,000 budget. And we often call these like test budgets. And I've also heard like 50K is a test budget depending on the size of the organization. But you definitely have authority to say, I can work with this without getting any approval. But when you get into that six-figure plus, and even smaller than that, again, depending on the size of the organization, you need approval. You need like executive sponsor. Sometimes you need the leadership team, the C-suite, to sign off on something, potentially a board of directors, depending on if you're a startup. And that's a lot harder to do. And so if you can get a smaller project at a lower budget, like that will give you the ability to start to get your foot in the door, and then start to prove to those decision makers that their money is going to be well spent. So to kind of dig into this a little bit more, we'd love to run a little poll with you, which I am going to turn on right now.
I just did.
Okay, Drew did it. Thank you, Drew.
So there.
So yeah, we'd like to know if minimum project costs were an obstacle for you when it came to landing good clients. We know this is pretty common for some folks that you just kind of say, no, we can't do this. And then, call us when you have a bigger budget or, a longer runway to do this project. So let us know what your experience is with that.
Yeah, and if you're having trouble finding, that should be over in the session, in the excuse me, button says polls. You should be able to find that. And so share your feedback. We'd love to see that.
Great. And while you guys are thinking about your answers for that, and I'm going to share a little video. Throughout this presentation, we've got some thought leaders in the agency space. And so we wanted to not only have you hear from Drew and I and our experiences, but other folks who are living this every day. And the first one that we are going to introduce you to is a man named Eddie OLeary. He manages an agency in the United States called Collab. and he's going to talk a bit about what it's like for him dealing with small projects that could actually surprise you.
Hi, I'm Eddie OLeary, founder of CoLab, a digital empowerment agency based in Richmond, Virginia, in the United States. About 5 years ago, someone reached out and asked if we would help with a small Drupal update to an old Drupal 6 website that had not been well maintained. And I'm not known for flat out rejecting work, but when we talked about it internally, I was like, nope, that's not what we do. We don't even really have a Drupal team. We've been largely focused on WordPress and Django-based sites. And even though I knew we could handle a Drupal update, the last thing I wanted to do was enter into an engagement to work on an old busted Drupal 6 site. And I have to admit that at the time I wasn't a big Drupal fan. It's probably a really good thing to throw out at DrupalCon. Luckily, I couldn't go to the meeting where I had to say no, and someone else on my team went. And when I checked back in with her, she said, we should not only do this update, but you really need to meet this client, sit down with them, and get to know this person. So she's super smart. And so I did what she said. And, we did the Drupal 6 updates. And I got to sit down with the client, and all he could talk about was, is this possible? Is that possible? Can we build a portal for this? Can we bring payments online? Can we create something for our operations? Can we redo our entire marketing platform? And I was like, yeah, we can. So, this little Drupal update that I was really reluctant to do, again, kind of opened the opportunity for someone to start to ask me those questions. Like, what is possible? What about this thing? What about that thing? And all of a sudden, we've solved this person's problem, which had really been holding him back, which to us wasn't a really big deal to solve. And so then naturally they're like, well, here's the next one, here's the next one, here's the next one. And that relationship has turned into tens of thousands of productive, rewarding, high value, award-winning work. So I'm really glad I couldn't go to that meeting.
So one of the things that I heard Eddie talk about was the idea here that you need to think about the types of clients that you want to win as a business. And sometimes taking on these smaller projects are a way to get those clients. So sometimes it's the work, sometimes it's the way they think. And in this case, for Eddie, it was really someone who wanted to push the boundaries of what their company was capable of. And that became a very rewarding experience for him and his team. And some of the ways that you can think about that is, you want to break out of these ruts of getting into this process and always like thinking it has to be a certain way, and we start here and we go to there. And so opening yourself up to these smaller ideas will lower the barrier to entry for you. Again, like getting your foot in the door, making sure that you can start to form relationships with people at these companies and get your champions. It'll help you build predictable revenue. So when you have large projects, there's a big drop off at the end. And we're going to have a fellow named Amit speak a little bit more about what he refers to as the cliff, where these projects end and you have all these people who've been working on it. And what do you do with them? You need to make sure they have something else lined up. And when you have a lot of these smaller projects, you can keep those people busy. You can keep that money flowing. You don't have to worry about these big ebbs and flows that can be really risky for your business, and have a lot fewer conversations with your finance people, because you can say, like, I know we have all of these things lined up for the next foreseeable future. And that helps you sleep a little bit better at night. And it keeps your employees happy and engaged. And it also creates a low risk line of business, again, like that, like feast or famine that a lot of agencies kind of like fall into, of like, it's the big one, the next big project. This is a lot less risky. Like once you form those relationships, we have a partner that we worked with at Pantheon last year. It started with a $3,000 engagement, and we continue to work with them for, it's been over a year and a half now. We have people basically that have embedded themselves on our team and are continuing to do work with us. And so those are the long-term relationships where these people become, your agency becomes embedded with the client, and you see a really unique kind of experience of how the two teams can work together. And so now I'm going to share Amit's story. He leads an agency called XWP, and he's going to talk about this cliff that I mentioned and how to focus more on predictable revenue streams.
It was interesting because we, as an organization, XWP, we had a lot of big projects. And when we started to open up to small projects, some people were a bit concerned because they said, well, that's not the type of company that we are. We do big projects. The funny thing is that big projects create a whole lot more risk to your organization and your forward planning. Because what happens with a big project? You get a big project, you have to ramp up a lot of people, and then there's a cliff edge. And the cliff edge means that at some point that project's going to finish and all those resources are going to have to be reallocated somewhere. So when we started to go from a small number of big projects to a much larger number of smaller projects and long-term engagements, we're able to forecast our business a lot better and not worry all the time about when's that cliff edge, when's that big project going to finish and all those people will be available and we have to find another big project to fill it. So the small projects actually allow you to plan much better, which is really nice.
Great. So I'm going to check back in on our poll now. It looks like you guys have leaned towards almost all of the time the minimum projects get in the way of landing good clients. And so, and some of you, it's been frequently. So today we're going to give you some tactics on how you can.
It was interesting because we, as an organization, XWP, we had.
Sorry, technical difficulty. We're going to give you some real life tactics on how you can practice this today, and so you can stop avoiding landing these good clients because of your budget requirements. And Drew is going to kick it off.
Yeah, so Sarah and I are going to run through 8 different offerings that we've seen agencies successfully offer out in the world and find a lot of success. Just like that story Sarah shared of the, somebody started with $3,000 project, which is like, I'm sure for those of us who do have project minimums, probably so far below what we think of as a project minimum. And yet it's turned into a very long sustained relationship with ongoing billing, very predictable long-term partnership, really valuable for the agency and, and Pantheon's experiencing value for it as well. So I'm going to run through, we're going to share 8 of those. We'll be doing that, after I talk about the common selling and delivery features, but all of these things have a very, there's a number of commonalities. On the selling side, there's a set price typically. So it's often under $10,000 in US, right? So Sarah and I are both based in the US, but euros roughly equivalent, like that's still a very small number, right? So frequently see ranges that go as low as 3 and maybe up to 20. That's kind of the sweet spot for these things. They're really easy to buy. So there's a very minimal amount of pre-sale interactions. There's a really clear contract, an easy way for people to pay. And it's very different than, say, your standard RFP processes or other things where, there's a lot of emails back and forth and maybe you're filling out forms and maybe you're, responding to different things. This is like, nope, here, we do this thing. If you want it, cost this much, 1 or 2 emails. It's low risk for everybody. Very little time invested on your staff time, and it makes it really easy to buy. They also have typically really clear requirements. Before we get started with this, we need this, 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 and this. Once you have those things, we can start. And then closely related to that is there's also typically really specific timelines. Like we can do, you should expect the first, this will be done within 6 business days or within 4 weeks or with, whatever the thing is. Like there's a very set timeline to do these things. And that, again, puts in a lot of predictability for the person who's buying. And it just feels like, okay, I know if I pay this amount of money, it's very transactional, very easy. Like, okay, I have these requirements. I'm going to get this very clear set of things on the other side. And that brings us to our delivery features. 4 common delivery features that we see are, one is that it's really easy to produce. So whatever the thing is that you're doing, and again, we're going to walk through 8 examples. If you have a step-by-step playbook, which is like, all right, so we're creating a report, for example. That's what a number of these different options are, these offerings that we're suggesting. you know what the PDF looks like, or whatever the format is you're going to deliver it in. You put in a little boilerplate language here. You run these tests. You do this stuff. You put the results here. Put the results there. And again, you can just kind of knock these things out. It becomes, as a bonus here, it becomes an opportunity for junior team members to learn and contribute. It's also these things always have crisp deliverables. There's a very clear definition of done. Once we give you the report, once we hold the training, once you do the thing, that is done. And we can, ooh, my AirPods are saying that's going to run out of battery. Uh-oh, that's terrible. So again, there's really crisp deliverables, and there's no sort of like unclear sense of, are we done or not? Nope, thing's done. We've completed this part of our engagement. And the thing you give to people is typically very easy to measure and share. So the deliverables should be something that like, for example, if it's a report, or maybe you've done a certain amount of work, it probably has next steps in it. Here's what you can do next. And if it's something that the client can then take and share around internally, like, here we paid $3,000, we got this. If we do more of it, we could get that for lots more pages, or lots more of the site, or more of our properties, or more of our staff, or whatever the thing is. And then it becomes a tool to sell it internally for the ongoing engagement, which leads to a really clear path to continue. So make it easy for people to continue working with you. Default to continuation, and just sort of set that expectation up. That's a great common set of delivery and selling features for all of these different offerings we're going to talk about. And the first one I'm going to share is something I think probably a lot of people already do. So I'm kind of cheating. And in fact, actually, this is very close to what I think Simone shared in the chat a little bit ago. And I'm just like scrolling back up to see it. A site audit or discovery workshop. This sort of thing. A lot of people come to us. So congrats, Simone. Like, that's awesome. A lot of people come to us and they don't exactly know what they want to do, right? And then that becomes a big risk. Well, if you want to do something with it, it's $250,000. I know you don't know what to do yet, but just come up with that money and we'll spend it together. I mean, like, that's that's not a very easy conversation. So help the client figure out what they need. You can do something small that would, just, again, hold that early workshop, the discovery sort of phase that many of us do as agencies. You can have the deliverable be something that they could use as an RFP, like a process that they could take in. That doesn't have to be something, exactly that, but it's, I think, a really easy small project offering that you can offer for a fixed price for those same selling and delivery features that I mentioned just a bit ago, and make it easy for people to get started with you.
That's right. And another option that you guys could try would be a performance tune-up. I don't think I've ever met someone who manages a website who feels like their site is fast as it could be. I think there's always an opportunity to do more, unless you like just launch and have no MarTech sitting on your site. And performance tune-ups are really great for agencies, because I feel like this is something that you can do without a lot of cost, aside from, some analytics internally. There's tools with Google and other things I'm sure you all are using that are available for free that can run a report. You can package it up into a document where it looks really formal. And then, talk about what next steps would be in terms of dealing with those performance issues, and make it really clear, like have a very specific plan of, like, these are the issues that we're seeing. These are the actions that we would take. If you want us to do this work, it would cost you, X, and, give people a clear path forward. And so that's something that, like, as we're going through each of these examples, we want to make sure that you have that tie-in. So, like, you do the thing, and then it leads to a larger project, that it's not something that's totally separate from your line of business and would be a distraction for your team moving forward.
All right. Another, I think, relatively easy offering for many of us might be something like a security audit. It's possible to scan sites, figure out what they're running for both, modules that may be out of date, or Drupal itself, or whatever other systems you support, as well as, looking at front end code and other things like that. There are a lot of tools that by virtue of doing this work, or your agency, people in your agency may be familiar with. if you can go ahead and just like run those reports, run those basic tools, and give a report back that somebody again can use internally, that can help them make the case. Like, hey, here's the problems that we found. Give some sort of quantification of what that, a risk of inaction might be, and that's the report that goes back. And include an estimate to do the work, and then that can be used as something again that the person who's doing the initial buying can say, like, we've got this amount of knowledge now, we probably should act on it. A consultant has told us these things, and that again gets something moving. But the initial offering can be quite small.
Yeah, I don't know any marketers out there that want to be in a headline for a security breach, and sharing that comfort that there are solutions out there. There's stuff that they can take to protect them and their audience and their personal data, is going to, again, help win those hearts, win those relationships, and help you build an advocate internally. If you can prevent that problem from happening, you're going to make some people really happy with their choice to partner with you. And another one is that another offering that you could try would be an SEO or an SEM report. Again, as someone who's managed websites throughout my career, there are points where I felt like I was an expert at this. I was like giving talks internally. This is how you do it. And then all of a sudden Google changes their algorithms and I feel like I'm back at square one. And so I've enlisted help from agencies numerous times throughout my career to help me with SEO, because it's just something that, like, it's hard to stay on top of it as a business owner, a manager, and a marketing team. And going to experts for me always gives me that comfort of, like, these people are breathing this in and out every day. They're going to know more than my team ever could. And so I really trust the experts when it comes to SEO and SEM optimization. And here I would say, like, make sure that you scope this really well. Like, don't look at the entire site. Like, pick a handful of pages where you can have the most impact with this type of analysis. You don't want to, again, overburden your team. This should be something that is easy for them to do in a short amount of time. And then again, have a marker of, this is where you're at today. This is where we think we can get you at in the future. These are some of the steps that we're going to take, and create a proposal for how you would conduct that work.
All right, next up, another option that we see, an offering that we see agencies having a lot of success with is one I didn't totally appreciate when I first saw it, and it's offering a training. And I think this is a really smart offering. Again, they can be very fixed in scope. They have this very easy to buy. You know what the agenda is. You know what you're going to learn. You hold these trainings, and I think they're really smart because they like, they're going to be appealing to people who are in transition. Like, there's new team members coming on, or they have a new a new area of responsibility that they're trying to cover. And if you're able to come in and help them figure out how to use what they've got, how to think about what they can do from there, etc., you're going to establish yourself as experts who have helped them be successful. And this often turns into future project work. A lot of these other things, like the security audit or something else like that, might lead very quickly to a new project. I think trainings oftentimes are a little bit further, a little bit longer out. So maybe 3 months later or 6 months later or something like that, you might get a call from the organization in question. But again, this can be a really valuable way to build that initial relationship, have some early success with them, help them get up to speed. And then when they get something that is going to be bigger than what they are able to handle internally, you are top of mind, because you've already built this reputation of being experts that they've already learned from. And it's an awesome way to get your foot in the door.
That's right. And I think sometimes people confuse this with, like, oh, if I train people on how to do something, then, they're not going to need me. And I would say, actually, it's quite the opposite. When I hire people to work with me, I always try and find people that are smarter than me, that know things that I don't know, that can supplement my team in some way that I'm not able to do so. And I often actually love using agencies to train my team. And what ends up happening is they're like, that person was so smart, they taught me so much. And they start to excel in their career, and they're so grateful for that. They're like, bring them back. I want to learn more. I want to do more. And that relationship, that advocacy, that it happens like kind of like magic. And so, don't discredit that. Another offering that we wanted to suggest today is accessibility audits. So, one of the, people talk about like, what's the next trend that you see? For me, I feel like accessibility will soon have some regulated standards similar to what we're seeing with things like GDPR in Europe and CCPA in California around data privacy. We need the web to be more accessible to more people, and not everybody experiences it in the same way. And there are, higher ed institutions in America are held to very high standards here. There's other like regulated industries where accessibility is really important, and people are being held to very high standards there. And so this is going to become more and more, I would say, common with folks coming to you looking for help with accessibility. And there's tools like Site Improve that you may already have subscriptions to that can run these accessibility audits for you to create these reports, and quantify that risk, and maybe identify some areas for action. And this is also just something that is like a good thing to do, right? Like, we need to make our websites more accessible. And so, building this in, making people aware that this is something that you can do is only going to, help you, I would say. So accessibility, I'm calling it here today, is going to be a big trend moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Another offering that we wanted to suggest to you is having something that's a very niche focused common need. So many agencies have a real strong focus in a particular kind of customer. And over time, you've gotten very good at higher ed, or very good at e-commerce, or very good at nonprofits, or very good at a certain kind of business, et cetera. One of the things that you gain from doing that is a lot of understanding of like what a really common need is. Address that. Figure out what one of those things are. So there's an organization that I know of. It's an agency based in the States that does almost no sales and marketing at all. They've been able to drop it down to very minimal amounts because they have an e-commerce tune-up offering that is, I think, $3,000 that they do. It's a report, and it's just so popular and so common that people will sign up for it. And not everyone continues on to do the next steps that they outline, but it allows them basically like to have staffed their agency quite differently based on the success of this program. They create the report and say, here's what you should do because of, if you make these changes, we can estimate that you will increase the number of conversions because of speed and how much easier it is to use the shopping cart, et cetera, whatever the things are. And they just have a tremendous success rate on it. But not everyone's an e-commerce expert. A lot of folks have very different things. So pick the thing that your agency does that like something that you think your clients and potential clients would really like to know and like focus in on that you have. Design something around that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Play to your strengths. You're going to start to see patterns of clients that fall into certain industries or categories, and look at what you've done in the past that's been really successful and figure out how you can productize that. Our last idea here is, think about creating an arm of your business where you can run these different types of services, these different types of analysis and reports continuously. In Pantheon, we talk a lot about web ops or website operations, and it's this iterative process where the website is never done. You're constantly looking for ways to optimize it. And I would say one of our partners who I think does this better than almost anyone else I know is Anne from Canopy Studios, and she's going to share a little bit about how she has created a whole business line for herself at her agency around continuous optimization for websites, and I'll let her share her story.
Hi, everybody. My name's Anne Stefanik, and I'm founder and CEO of Canopy Studios. At Canopy, we design, build, and support websites for clients that want to make a positive impact. We practice what we call continuous website improvement, which is the same methodology as web ops, and it's the idea of taking small bites for big wins with our clients. Now at Canopy, we have two departments. Our one department is our build department, where we do net new projects with content strategy, UX, design, development. And then the other side of our business is our
Sarah, I think we lost the audio and you muted.
Always ask me, like, how did you build such a robust support program? And the reality is that we took our time and we made some mistakes along the way. I think the one thing about support is support and these little small projects are sometimes easy to sell, but hard to deliver. So one of the things that I noticed right away that in order to actually practice web ops or CWI is to create a defined process and department. It's totally different than our build processes and department because when you have these smaller micro projects, you really need to be tooled to be able to handle these. We also found one of the biggest challenges that we kind of overcame was helping either new employees or folks that are joining us understanding the value of why we do support and why we do this continuous website improvement. Often a developer will come and say, I don't want to work in support. That sounds boring. I don't want to do update. I want to work on net new stuff. And then when we share kind of how we actually only spend about 1% of our time doing module updates, the rest 99% of the time is actually creating impact for clients. So developers and designers can quickly and efficiently realize their work. Pretty much, client asks for something, we sit with a strategist and a tech lead, we come up with the scope, how we're going to execute it, and then we execute it over the next 3 to 6 weeks very successfully. So some of our larger builds that maybe go on for 4, 5, 9 months, a developer and designer may be working on that the entire time. In our CWI, our web ops department, we're really focusing on creating immediate action. Soon after an employee actually starts and works in support, about 8, 9 weeks, and they're like, wow, this is really fun. I get to build it, deploy it, and get to the next thing. So we did find actually like helping employees with mindset shifting to really understand the value of CWI or web ops. I would also really encourage any agency owner to adopt a robust support program. I would not, in the end, I would just don't understand why people don't, but I do understand that it requires some infrastructure investments and making sure that your team and your processes are really dialed for support. Because once again, support's easy to sell and can be hard to deliver. I would love to chat with you more about this. So if you want to reach out, give me a shout. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to connect with me. And we'll see you soon. Thanks again. Bye. Hi, everybody. My name's Anne Stefan.
All right. So hopefully that's given us all some ideas and offerings that we can all try. And I'm going to share. We're going to share a couple of quick clips from both Eddie and Amit again, just talking about how to get started.
The advice I'd give to other agencies that are looking to offer smaller projects and open that up is to just think about what is the element that you offer that is of great benefit. So put aside the thought of what revenue you're going to gain from it and think about what is the thing that you do that you're going to help them grow. So for XWP, for example, we found that we had a lot of experts in performance improvements. So we wanted to make sure that we were coming to organizations and saying to them, this is the thing that we do. We're going to help you improve your performance, and that will let you increase your revenue because your site will be faster and there'll be more people coming to it. So find that one thing that you do that's great, that's going to add value to your customer. Focus on that first, and that will drive the business. So the advice I'd give to other agencies.
All right, and here's Eddie as well.
There's a lot of really cool things you can do with small engagements, in my experience, to help open the door to some really excellent and interesting opportunities and relationships. And also, every time we work with a new client, every time we get in the door with someone, it's really a gift, because the more we learn about our clients, the more we learn about what they're doing that's working, what's not working, what are their challenges and opportunities, what are they disagreeing on, what are they all in agreement on. That's all things that make us better at our job. So I really crave kind of the opportunity to get inside a good company and just learn from them. And then hopefully, if I do my job right, we can start to take what we've learned and provide a lot of value. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with small engagement.
Thank you, Sarah, for running the slides and dealing with the
double tap.
business. So I see we have a couple questions in the Q&A. We're going to have time for questions, but I'm just going to wrap this up and just with a reminder of these offerings that we're suggesting. a strategy or discovery workshop, a performance tune-up, some security audits, SEO or SEM reporting, accessibility audit. A lot of those are like reports that you give back, but they're reports on things that you know how to do. Maybe you've done a little bit of work as well, like the performance tune-up. Maybe you have a mock-up or something like that. The team training, that niche focus, common need, or what Anne was really talking about was just like this continuous website improvement, as she framed it, which I think, you know, as an aside, I think many agencies talk about wanting to do agile and have that as being something that they aspire to do. But, you know, if you talk a little bit more, it's like, oh, we do Watergile, or we do some, you know, like some sort of hybrid process or something like that. But, you know, when you're doing a fixed amount of work and a fixed amount of time for a fixed amount of budget, it's not really agile. And what Anne was describing, actually, I think is far more agile. So for those of us who think that agility is a good something to aspire to, that this really mindset of like these small little bites that you just keep on doing with clients produces, again, like a lot of predictable revenue for the agency and a lot of predictable value for the customers too. Like they just keep getting better and better and better. So with that, let's go ahead. We're going to jump into questions, and I see 2 in the Q&A tab. And that's where I'm going to be looking. So if you have questions, oh, and awesome. I see Sarah's also posted in the chat the slides so that people can.
I shared a link to the deck. Yep.
Awesome. So let's hit these questions. So I think the first one that came in would be Simone. And Simone, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right. For all these small projects offerings, would you offer those for a fixed price or depending on the complexity and effort the team will spend? So my recommendation is that you offer them for a fixed price, because you offer a very fixed set of deliverables. It's really clear. It's really important to have a very crisp set of like, we're going to do this, this, and this. You will be done when we give you the report, or whatever the thing is. And it's for something like, well, it could, you know, it could be really big. We don't really know what we're getting into. Just have a cap, but like, we're going to be looking at these 4 things. Like, your website is large, we're going to look at these 4 pages. Your website is large, we're going to look at only at this, whatever the thing is. But just have a very specific, like, we're doing this amount. It will cost you some money. We're going to give you the report, whatever. That's my thoughts. Sarah, I saw you shaking your head there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing here is to have this very, very well scoped. You shouldn't have any questions around the complexity or the effort involved. This should be something that is very packaged up. Like, I know it's going to take my team 15 hours, and then there's going to be a 2-page report that goes out, and it's going to, you know, all of the things that are going to go into this process are something that you should be able to, maybe the first time it'll be a little bit of a like figuring it out, but what's going to make this a repeatable process is to have it very well scoped so that you don't have any of those questions.
Yeah. And again, like the first time you do this won't be perfect, but once you get the sort of like a feel for it, if you sort of know that you're heading in this direction, I think you have, you know, be on a path for success. Mm-hmm. Next question I see here is from Jacob. How can a small business get first B2B contract, offer the service you presented to grow the business from also agency? Yeah. So I think the process for a single person agency, which is the way I'm reading your question, Jacob, is going to be the same as a larger agency. Really, is like, again, have a small offering about something that you are able to do very well, that you know it's performance, it's security, it's SEO, you know, whatever the thing is that you have a specialty around. The first time you offer it, it probably won't go perfect. Like, this is going to be the same thing for an agency too. Like, you might take more time to do it than you were expecting. You might have it might just take more effort and such. So you may need to raise the price in the future or something like that. But I think I think the advice that Amit shared in particular is like, focus on that value. Don't worry about the money. Just focus on like, what is the thing I can do that's valuable? Focus on that thing. What's the sort of minimum valuable product I can deliver? The report, whatever it is, and then work out a reasonable price. You know, $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, something small that becomes a very small barrier to entry, so that people can say like, all right, I took a small risk, I got this information, and I can proceed with confidence because I know that this person's able to do the work that we're talking about. So I think it's actually I think it's going to be really the same for a small agency of one person or a much larger agency, really, frankly.
Yeah, the two things I would add to that are pay yourself fairly, right? Don't undervalue the work that you're doing as one person. Don't say like, oh, I want to win this client, so I'm going to take a big pay cut, because that can form like a really bad habit that's just going to like put you in a hole that you're constantly climbing out of. So pay yourself fairly, like you're doing good work, and the client should pay you accordingly. And then also, as you're getting started, like tap your network, reach out to people that you know, have goodwill, start to introduce people to other people, and you're going to find clients probably through people you know first. I had a photography business at one point in my life. My first clients were all people that I knew, and then people start talking about your work, and then it spreads, and you can get case studies and things like that. But it's going to be up to you to really start to drum up that business before people are going to come and looking for you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for the love in the chat and the Q&A and such. I think we're actually at time. I know that I'm certainly willing to continue talking, but I'm actually just going to drop. I'm at D Gordon. Like, actually, do we have our bio slides or contact information? If anybody wants to ask questions about this or continue a conversation, be happy to engage over email or Twitter or Drupal Slack or anything like that. I'm D Gordon in most places, and I'll type that into the chat too, because I know copying and pasting is easier.
I'm Sarah Fruey. There's only one of me in the world that I've found so far, so I'm pretty easy to find if you know how to spell my name. It's not Fury, it's Fruey, F-R-U-Y. So at Sarah Fruey, Sarah.Fruey at Pantheon. That's how you find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for sticking with us, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your DrupalCon, and yeah, I hope to meet you all in person someday.
That'd be great. Thank you all.